So I think everybody will be able to hear me very clearly because I can see everybody muted, but hope you can hear me. So today's webinar is going to be, continuation a session from the last one, which Architect Pawan did. So we are going to start off with this particular webinar, which will show you or have your doubts cleared about what are all the things which you are going to do in the 5 years of time in architecture. So that's what I'm going to be explaining everybody. So we will go right into the presentation. So starting with the presentation, so I'm a person who considers everything has details. So architecture has a lot of details which we need to look into. So every slide of my presentation will be presented with a particular detail which you will understand, and which you can see. It's going to be visual. I don't have too much of text, but it'll be fine. So how can you become an architect? So the 5 years of time, and how are we going to start to learn architecture or go into architecture itself is what we are going to see today. So the first thing I would like all of you to see on the screen is that so architecture is not just having architecture is not just having something to do with the buildings. Architecture is more to it. So if you're going to learn about buildings only, you can just do it in like 6 months or 2 months also, you can. But when you're learning more things which are related to the building, which is architecture, all of you will be able to take into a lot of time, which is why we have the 5 years which is there in our architecture curriculum or the syllabus. So we are going to see the syllabus also a little bit. So if I can explain you, it's very interesting. The presentation is going to be very interesting, and the presentation is going to be very colorful and vibrant, like how the life of architecture itself, all the 5 years happens. So this slide explains us about what are the things that we are going to learn in architecture. How are we going to learn it, rather. So if you can see the first picture, it shows you something about something says people. The second picture says solving puzzles, and the third picture says mimicking nature, and then the last picture says shortcuts. So the first picture, basically, we are put into a very prioritized or a periodical grid of learning, where we will actually start learning about a lot of people. So people of different types, and people, how they live together, and how are people going to be away from each other and inside a space, outside a space, and things like that. So learning about people in architecture is one main, it's called the default button. If we don't learn about people, we are not going to come out with very creative and very good ideas for architecture. So learning about people is one, you can see in the picture. So the people are having formation which is in a circle, and then that relates to this shape or this particular direction which we can see, which is shown here, and then that relates to another mode of circulation. So this is all, from people we can learn a lot of things. Second one, solving puzzles. So solving puzzles, it actually, it's like playing those puzzle games on a newspaper. So it's very fun. At the same time, it's very interesting and very it deals with a little bit of IQ also. So when you are going to solve a lot of puzzles in this particular 5 years, you're going to end up being an architect, is what I'm coming to say. Now the next picture, if you see, this is a very important picture, which is actually how it explains architecture to be, which is mimicking nature. So the meaning of mimicking nature is, it's right there in the picture. So if you can see here, we can see a lot of trees and three people walking there. It's a very beautiful sketch, and from that we take this particular one tree, the one tree or one abstract of a tree, and then we put that into a building form like this. So this is how architecture relates to nature. So architecture is very close to nature when we are practicing it and when we are designing a lot of things. The last picture, if I can show you, is this shortcut. So architecture deals with a lot of when you're going to learn about people, solving puzzles, mimicking nature, it brings a little bit of complication as we go into the years, first year, second year, third year. By the fifth year, you are going to learn how do you make easy shortcuts in bringing about a very good and a very brilliant design which you can give it out for the society. So this is what our first slide says. So all these points are contributing to the learning of architecture. So let me show you the next slide. Now this is a slide, or this picture is very simple, very visual and very creative. So in this picture, if you can see, this is this particular form which we have in the first is kind of a very blunt form. Okay, it can be a mountain, or it can be anything. It can be a geological feature or things like that. Now, what happens is when you study about architectural history, we are going to learn about a lot of things, how, the form changed into, how the form changed into things like this, which is there in the middle where they were trying to build some things, and then how they ended up in being a community. So this is what architectural history will teach you in architecture curriculum. So it's going to be very amazing, and this the fact that we are going to learn about from the prehistoric and how architecture came out to be is really a very overwhelming fact. Really overwhelming fact, and we at the end of learning history, we will actually give a lot of respect for the monuments and things like that. So that is what I think history is going to teach us inside architecture. The next one, the next one we are going to learn inside architecture in the 5 years is something called community and neighborhood. So I know everybody is there living in a community. We are all living in a community, and we are all living in a neighborhood. But how many of us really know what is the life of a person who is having a house at the end of the neighborhood? What is the life of a person who is in the playground? What is the life cycle, or some life attributes of a person who is there in a road? Let's say even take a beggar. What is he even doing? Things like that. So architecture doesn't deal with the buildings literally, deals with how a building is surrounded by something. A building is surrounded by a community, a neighborhood, okay, and an environment. So architecture will look in very detail about how, if your friend is there in the next street near your house, you need to learn about your friend's lifestyle to design a house in that particular context also. So it's even more of an engaging factor with a lot of people. So this picture can explain you very closely about how things happen. Now this is a classroom. Okay, it can be a school, and this is a very maybe it can be a gallery or a library. And here we got a shop which is there in the middle in this. And then here we got some people sitting and working. And here we got some people outside. They may be in the playground. Now, architecture goes into all these things and then teaches you how you put all these things together to form your design or bring up with your beautiful house or your beautiful community center, anything you can build or design. So this is a very second important point about what we are going to learn in architecture. The third one in architecture, we are going to see in this 5 years about a lot of people, culture, and lifestyle. So the second year, you'll be running into something called rurals, which I'll be explaining it in the next few slides, where we'll be engaging with actually village people. And then when coming to the fourth year, we'll be going for the grand North India tour, or the whole of India. We will travel and we'll look at all the monuments and things like that, where our students, as students, you will be introduced to the people and the culture who are there. So architecture also deals with people, culture, and lifestyle. So in this picture, you can easily explain, people are gymming around and then they're playing. Somebody's taking a sun bath. This guy is skiing around a waterfall, see, and then a swimming pool. So all that is, put there into this particular community. So we need to learn that. So architecture will make you learn about people and culture, which is which is the most beautiful part of it, I should tell. Now, this is another, a little bit going into facts or figures, I would say. So, architecture deals with, or we'll try to learn about a lot of factors around us. Okay, you can just see in the screen. You don't have to take more detailed looks and also factors in the sense architecture. When you need to do a building or when you need to bring about a design by itself, you need to have these factors which needs to be considered, which we will definitely learn in the process of making a good design, which is going to be factors like the natural factors, the cultural factors, and the aesthetic factors. Now this is when you're into the Nata, you will know about things like this. So it's very easy to understand. Now factors around us is very, let's say it is a formula even for us to bring architecture into life, and then we can learn. So this one, so these two pictures show us very creative or beautiful, vibrant colors, which show us architecture deals with interaction. So in the 5 years, as students, you will be interacting with different types of people, like I told you, and different people in different states, different age groups, and things like that. So definitely, you will be architecture. This 5 years is not like the part of engineering where we go to the textbooks, learn, and put things on the exam. No, we are going to see a lot of traveling, we are going to see a lot of people in interaction, where we can actually learn about life and culture itself. So if you're a traveler, or if you're very vibrant, you want to travel and stuff like that, you are really going to have a good time when you're doing the interaction part, which is there in architecture. And of course, not to tell, the only form of energy which we have for the whole of earth and the solar system is the sun. We'll be learning a little bit about the sun, even about how the sun goes in cycles. We already know the directions and stuff like that, so that will be also incorporated with how you start designing your buildings or your spaces, which when we bring in the sun, the wind, and all the natural things, designing buildings or designing a particular space or form becomes very, very interesting. And without even knowing, you yourself, you will just fall into that. So it's obviously you will be running into a lot of sun, wind, and light. Okay. Now this picture shows us one of the main forms of problems we have nowadays is the climate change, which a lot of people are talking about, and a lot of people are taking a lot of energetic measures for climate. Yes, but as architects, I think we are the closest people to understanding climate. Okay, so we are the closest people who can even talk to meteorologists or people like that, and get a lot of input for a particular region or a particular country or a neighborhood, where if you're going to design a house or you're going to design something, you need to learn a lot about the climate of that area, about how the sun falls. So like this picture, if we can see here, this little guy is saying, I live here. So maybe he's living on the top floor or the down floor, but still the sun plays a very important role designing the buildings. If you see in the picture on the left hand side, now here we see this big orange arrow which is coming. That is nothing but how the wind goes into a space. Now this is a space which somebody's designed. You can see trees out there. Now you can see these small arrow marks which they put here and there, which will actually deal with a lot of learning of wind. How can wind, now we all of us sitting in a room now, we know there is a lot of wind in the room, from where it is coming and where it is going out and things like that. So learning about wind is one, it's like learning about a very strong puzzle of nature. It's very beautiful. So we'll go into that also. Now, bringing you now, that is the introduction of architecture. Generally, if I say, those are all the things which you are going to have in those 5 years. You're going to go into those things, and you're going to learn those things very detailed, in the sense, as you go. Architecture is one interesting fact that when you start going inside the details, you start to fall in love with it. You just don't come back from the details. So that's how architecture is, and it has been for everybody. So as you can see in the screen, architecture starts when you carefully put two bricks together. There it begins. So this is a very good quote which is there. It's on the internet. But why particularly this quote I took today is I wanted to tell you about detailing, or the amount of patience we need to have, or the amount of focus we need to have when we are doing this stuff. Which is where you have a brick in both the hands, your right hand, the left hand, and then you put the brick closer. It takes a lot of dedication, patience, focus, and stuff like that. Now that is where I think, like they tell, the architecture or the life or the journey of architecture actually starts for every one of us. For me it started as soon as I finished my 12th standard. The architecture journey started, and even today I'm right into the journey, and it's been very amazing. So this is one detail which we need to look at in we can learn it as a life learning itself. So architecture starts when you carefully put two bricks together. There it begins. So next one. So this is these are the general things which I showed you about architecture. Now, since we are running into the next 20-26 minutes, I will take you inside the life of architecture each year. First year, second year, third year, fourth year, and the fifth year. And I will tell you about, I can clear your doubts. I know all of you who are looking at the screen now have doubts about, okay, first year, second year, third year, what is going to happen, man, really? So you have that question in your mind. So I can tell you very clearly, the first year, if you see in the screen, the first year, you're going to do a lot of colorful stuff as the picture shows. You're going to deal with a lot of art, a lot of craft, paint, colors, vibrance, you're going to explore this medium, okay, of, colors and pencils, sketches. That's a very beautiful subject which is there in the first year, and more subjects also, which you can, learn these things. So if we go to the next slide, now this is what we are going to see in the first year. So the first year, you can see in the left hand side, that is how, the first year semester one, semester two falls. And if you can see this particular thing, the yellow highlighted points, those are actually the main subjects where you're going to do a lot of interesting things like I showed you in the previous pictures. So you're going to, as I told you, you're going to learn a lot of history of architecture, which is main thing for architecture itself. And then mathematics stays only for one semester, so you don't have to worry. It's not going to be like math 1, math 2, math 3. It's going to be like math 1. So math 1 is going to end with one semester. And then after that, we are going to actually do a lot of creativity and learning rather than doing science and stuff. So if you can see, we have subjects like, architectural drawing, which will teach you about how the first thing which we teach you in architectural drawing is how to draw a straight line without using a scale. Now, that is really tough to do, because even today, if I try drawing a line straight with the pencil, it's going to be a little bit of a danger because I know where it's going to pop up and down. So it's a skill we need to counter. And then we have things like communicative English, and art studio is a very beautiful subject where you'll be dealing with a lot of paint, POP, making models, and then you'll be doing a lot of wood carving, and you'll be going out to a lot of places which are nearby in the college, and you'll be sketching landscapes and things like that. So that's going to be how the first semester. So the second semester is going to again deal with the same subjects, but a little bit of added up stuff. So it's going to be more of basics which we are going to see in the first year. So basics in the sense, basics of how we can, what are the basics which we can really need to learn when we are on the process of becoming an architect. So that's what's going to happen in the first year. Now let me show you something which we have here. Now these are all things or the pictures which we took from our own institution, which the students are doing in the first year. Now these are the sketches which they had done, and these are the things which they do with pottery. They learn pottery, and they have a lot of student engagement where they get into groups, and an art teacher comes and he teaches them to do a lot of things in art. So even in this picture, if you see in the background, we literally paint the walls of our institution just to make it a little bit vibrant and creative. Now this is another picture which shows how students get into the details of art. Now how do you do art when you trace something, or when you are putting a particular thing on the wall, a mural or things like that. This is how students came out to be creative, and they're already into the process of doing all that stuff. Now this picture, if you can see, this is done with fully threads, and it's woven with threads, where we are going to see, that's very tough part, but it needs a lot of patience to do. So that is what they are getting ready here in this particular image, and this is what they are come up with. So these are all the type of things which we are going to do or see in the first year, which is going to set up this particular fundamental basics for you to jump into the second, third, and the fourth semester. So without basics, without the ABCD, we can't really write our own words. So we need to learn the basics and the ABCD. So this is about the first year. That's how interesting it looks. Now the second year, when we come to the second year, we've got, if you can see the words, we've got something called as villages, people, daily life, and multi-space design. So this particular second year in the curriculum has architectural design too, which in the next pictures I can show you, where we take, or you as students and your classes will be taken to villages which are there in India, or which are there in your region, or which are there in the state, where you will go to those villages, stay there, learn about how the village works, how are the people, how everything happens there, and learn how the people eat, learn how the people even travel in the village and things like that. and then we will create or we will do proposals for village design. Now, that is the most interesting second year part. The second year, the semester 2, is all about going to the villages and learning about these people, and getting to know more of new people and culture. So it's a fact. In fact, it is one of the very detailed, interesting stuff which we can learn in the second semester. Now, the second semester has got a little bit of subjects which coming with without structures we can't really do architecture. We will run into a little bit of structures, as you can see in the left hand side of the slide. And then this village survey, we will be doing the village survey and a commercial design. Now, this is what we did when we took the students to the village survey. So the students started interacting with the village people. They took photographs and they started measuring the villages here. They started measuring houses. They made drawings. They came to know, or they got to know about how and what is the lifestyle of the villages here. So like we went to Kotigiri, which is there near Uti. So we learned a lot about how they are making tea and how tea leaves get transferred and things like that. We learned about these women who do that. Now, after learning that, we come back to the institution, and we run into a lot of things like this, where our students will actually do sheets which you can see here. The models which they've done, where they will actually directly make a very copy of that village itself, and they'll be learning about that village, and they will do an examination is not going to be like writing. A little bit of writing will be there. The examination is going to be how you stand and you explain what you saw in the village and how you did things and how you measured in the village. Now you can see these models which these people have done. So this is how now, this is how the second year, the second year's main part of the second year is going to run through. You will have your subjects, but at the same time, this particular thing called the architectural design 2, architectural design 3, will deal with a lot of beautiful stuff, where you will learn about a village, a community, and commercial design also sometimes. So running into the third year, so these are some of the sheets. Yes, sorry. So these are some of the sheets which the students did during the rural study. So this is the full stretch of the village. If you can see from the left and right, it's a very long village which they have studied, and they've bought some ideas out there, and they've done it all in manual sheets with color pencils, paints, and things like that. So it becomes more interesting after come to the classroom. This is the whole painting where students did, and they drew the whole plan of the village, which we can see here, where the village was very closely looked into a lot of dimensions, and they drew plans like this, which is called mapping, which we are doing in the second year. These are all things which architecture serves to be a very good learning. We can really be interested in doing this. So we're running into the third year. So the third year is going to be, if you can see words like, multi-space design, malls, cultural centers, and city centers. So multi-space design, we will be running into malls, cultural centers, city centers. We have, socially engaging spaces, which we will learn. So if you can see here, the left-hand side is got, the curriculum or the subject wise. Now, what is the main thing which you are going to, this is the third stage, the third year. And this is the stage where you are going to learn about designing big spaces and community spaces. So architectural design 4 and architectural design 5, with the architecture of the history of architecture, will teach you together about how the olden architecture you will learn simultaneously, and you will be designing new things which you want to put out to the community itself. So things like big spaces and commercial spaces you'll be designing, art galleries, cultural centers, a little bit of schools will be designing, colleges, creative designing, I would call it rather. So this is how the third year works. This is the formula for the third year. Now, if we can see, these are some of the sheets which the students did in the third year. The architectural design for third years, you can see here. They have designed, a community center, and it's experience center which they have designed. So everything is done by the students itself. So what you do is, you learn the location, you do a little bit of conceptualizing, sketches, and things like that, and then you bring out to be a very good design, which will be a part of your portfolio later. So that is one. This is a children's hospital which somebody did. Very good. It's a very beautiful design. If you can see here, they did their sketches and then converted it into software, And this is how, you bring out your creative talent outside. You're going to use a little bit of software in the third years. You're going to bring up your laptops, and you're going to experience more of, a little bit of even animation, we could say, when you're going to design your building. So this is some of the sheets. Architectural design for third years again. So this is another, pediatric hospital which the previous batches designed, and this is where we learn about more of doctors, patients. If you're doing a hospital, and then when you're learning about a art center, you will be learning about a lot of artists, and you'll be learning a lot of people with art. If you're going to design a college or a school, you'll be learning how a professor is, how a student is, where does the student sit down, why does he go to the library, and a lot of things like that. So this is what the third year will comprise of. The third year will take you to a stage where you will be designing a little bit more than a small space. It will be a little bit of bigger space where you will be learning about a lot of design functions and design, creativeness, which you'll put in. Now, running soon into the fourth year is going to be a very professional year, because as you come into the fourth year, you are going to jump in a very professional. The way you carry yourself, for example, the way you present yourself, the what kind of outfit you wear, everything will change. As a person, you will change when you enter the fourth year. You will be changing mentally, and you'll be changing in your physical also, and you'll be changing in your outfits also. So how you carry yourself will be distinguished after the fourth year. No, you will act like a professional. You will start acting like an architect. You will have this particular kind of style and notion with you. That attitude which an architect really needs when he wants to go into the industry. So fourth year will bring in things like that. So in this fourth year, we'll be learning about urban design, community learning, and big scale design. Now I'll show you what it looks like. It is even more interesting. So the left hand side shows the formulation. Now, this fourth year is the interesting part where you are going to learning about an urban environment. For example, if you have a city, you're going to your class, as a student, you're going to be split up in groups, and you're going to put up in like different parts of the city where you'll be learning zones, and zones of that particular city itself. Let's say Coimbatore, if we take it, we can put it into 8 zones, 7 zones, and learn. So there you make learning. You learn about the people, interact with the people, you make drawings, you make sketches, you even become a journalist, I would say, because you start recording how the people talk. You take videos and interviews of people about what are the problems they're facing in the neighborhood. So the picture on the right hand side of the screen will easily explain about what are the things you're going to see. You're going to deal in with a lot of transportation, roads. You're going to design things. So you're going to actually put out new things out to the world. As you're doing this, the most important or the most beautiful, memorable part of the architecture life comes to you, which is called the educational tour, which is there in your syllabus itself, which is coming in the semester, which you can see here. Yes, semester 8. So you will be going to this educational tour, like I told you in the previous slides. You'll be taken to all the different parts of India, all the different parts of India where there are different and beautiful monuments from northern India to the central Deccan, and then coming to the south. We are going to look into a lot of beautiful spaces. You're going to go there, take photographs, study about that places, and you're going to look at them in visual. So the interesting part about this is all these places you're going to look into in the North India, or we call it the whole India tour. All those places are the places which you already learned in the history which you were learning in the first 3 years. So we teach history in the first year, second year, third year, and those are the same things which you're going to look into the tour which you go. So automatically what you start to understand is how our culture was, how our tradition was, and you will really relate to a lot of history which you learned in school about the kings, their fortresses, and how were the queens being given a separate palace, and how did the war happen, and a lot of things which we can learn when we go to this tour. And one thing which happens after coming back from the educational tour is that the perspective of your life or your thinking will change once you travel, and once you see a lot of things like that. As soon as you come back from the travel and come into the college for the fifth year, already you become a professional in the fourth year. And now what is going to happen is your perspective towards architecture, your perspective towards life, your perspective towards your own creativity will change. It will definitely happen, because with travel, with a lot of interaction and culture and tradition, as we are in India, we will definitely change into a different person as we come to the end of the fourth year. Now, that is what the fourth year holds. The fourth year is one of the very compacted and very, it will just tweak you there to be an architect. Where in the fifth year, you will jump into more beautiful things. The next coming slides will show you this important part of the fourth year is you will learn people inside spaces. You will learn a lot about how the vegetation is being done, or how the geological format is there in India, or geological format of your city or your neighborhood. If you have a tree in front of your house, what is that tree? Why is that tree there? Is it a summer tree, winter tree, flowering, non-flowering? Lot of questions. And we will learn about people and their types. Obviously, fourth year is one drastically important part of the architecture life, memorable part. Now, these are some of the sheets which I'll show you. You can just have a closer look. So this is how people, the students bring about sheets, which are the urban study, which we call it. This was 2019's urban study, which we did. Students, these are all works entirely done by students. So by fourth year, if you're going to look at this screen now and you're going to think, can I do this kind of work? Am I really capable of that? I'm betting you stage one, first year, second year, third year, you finish. The fourth year, you automatically can do things like this in a just a snap of a finger. You can do it with a software. It's really very amazing, very professional, and lot of things which we'll run into urban study, learning about a visual of a city, transportation zone wise we'll learn. It's very interesting about learning about auto rickshaws, buses, cycles, why they are around and where are they going, do they take the same route daily. A lot of questions come and it becomes more interesting as we jump into that. So we'll learn about a lot of road network, road profile, and then we'll jump into the fifth year. So fourth year is going to be the year where all of you are going to be, you're going to be carved into an architect. Okay. So the fifth year is a very, it's a very light year. Yes, it's a very light year because by now you're skilled. By now you know what to do. By now you're already like on the verge, 75% of becoming an architect, and you already have the attitude to carry for an architect. So the fifth year will deal with the practical training and the thesis. I'll tell you what that looks like. So the fifth year, you'll be learning about a little bit of buildings, community, and the social structure which we have. So in the fifth year, if you can see semester 9, you will be sent out of college. You will be sent to an architect's office where you will send your resume. You will send your portfolio. The architect will call you in for an interview. He will interview you and he'll take you as an intern for his office, and you'll be working there for some amount of 6 months where you'll be paid, and then you'll be working there. And as soon as you finish the 9th semester, you'll come back to college and show us what are all the works you did with different architects. Now, if you're ending up in a very college and you want to go to somewhere on the north, or you're going to somewhere on the abroad, want to go to abroad, you can really do that. You get the freedom of selecting where you want to go and who is the type of architect which you need to practice or learn with. You can go into vernacular architecture, you can go into modernism, or the architects who really practice contemporary, which is becoming the stage of trend. So you have a lot of freedom on the fifth year. So as soon as you finish the practical training and come back, you're going to have one professional elective, one theory subject, which is going to be your freedom for selection. And then you're going to run into the thesis. The thesis is called, the last, finisher. Like, we call Dhoni the finisher. So his thesis is called as the finisher of architecture. Your thesis is going to have design of buildings which you have never done in the 4 years. I'll show you some pictures. Those are the pictures which really show how thesis really becomes a part or the important part of your life or your career. So if you want to get into a job, if you want to get into your masters after BArch, or if you want to go into abroad after your BArch, your thesis is going to be one factor in which you are going to put all the things which you have learned in all the 9 semesters and all the things which you have come across from the first year to the fourth year. So the thesis is going to answer. It's going to be the beautiful creative answer. So thesis reflects yourself. If you're the person who is going to be very traditional, the thesis will be reflecting yourself. The person is going to be very modern. The thesis is going to be really, really modern. So it can happen any ways and in any formulated ways or in any propaganda also. So some of the thesis works you can see on the screen. Now this is how your works will look when you come to the fifth year. Now this is called, the top or the toppest or the highest stage of professional work execution which you can do with your softwares and with your mind and creativity, which will definitely happen in the fifth year. As you go into all the fourth years and jump into the fifth year, it will be a very interesting fact. Now this is where you become more inspiring. Now this is how you will look into your thesis itself about one particular building maybe, or a whole community maybe, or anything like that. Now the output of your thesis is going to be things like that. See, now designing, this particular zone for your city or your neighborhood, or it even becomes designing this whole beautiful, modern, extraordinary building which you always wanted to design, which you always wanted to design very uniquely as architect, which nobody has ever done, which you want to do, can be done in the fifth year. Breaking the design, breaking the rules, and bringing in more of life into architecture will be seen in the fifth year. And even designing things which really not only designing in urban fabric, not only designing on the flats, but taking your design to a level up. So if you want to take your design to more of a 20-story 30-story building, a complex, an office, and where you're going to learn about a lot of people, and then you run into a lot of people also. In the thesis you'll be going into a little bit, your thesis will make you travel the whole of India. So you'll be going for case studies to different parts of India, and then you'll come back and then you'll start designing. If it is not enough, again you can go for a case study. So wherever you want, most of the students which I know go for case studies towards the northern. They go to the north and experience a lot of stuff. Some even go to Singapore, Malaysia. They study about things and they come back and then they finish the thesis. So that's how thesis. The end of the fifth year, the thesis will make you an architect, a professional, and you are going to be this person who is ready mentally, who's ready with some confidence, who is ready with some inspiration, and who is ready with a lot of energy and fire, where you are ready to actually go and jump into the industry and make your mark. So that is how architecture really prepares you in all the 5 years. So that is I think for today's the how to become an architect. So that's how you become an architect. So I would say this is the end of the presentation. Hope you all found it interesting. If you guys have any questions, you can just type it out in the chat panel, where I'll be able to answer the questions whichever you have. Nandini ma'am, I think I'm done. Yeah. Participants, you can also like unmute your mic, and you can start. You can just answer. You just ask your question. If you have any doubts, it'll be very clear for me to explain. So, looking at the chat, yes. What are the software every architect should know? Yes, it's a good question. Now, softwares, you'll be running into softwares in the third year and the fourth year, fifth year level. As basic softwares for architect to know is called there's something called as Autodesk Cad. Okay, AutoCAD we called it by in the industry. So AutoCAD is one basic software which you can learn, which will make you ready for architecture. So with that software, you can actually learn more of interest. And there are other softwares. There's this software which is called as Google SketchUp, which is a very interesting and a funny software. You don't even learn. You don't even want to go into a tutorials and learn that. But if you just download this software and start fidgeting with it, you will automatically know how to create spaces and how it becomes more interesting. So I think that both of that should do when you're entering into architecture. But when you enter into architecture after the second year, you will be running into softwares. That is the question from Nagaratnam. So I think I've answered your question, Mr. Nagaratnam. That's what will happen with softwares. So Shreya, what are the options in professional elective? Okay, professional elective will come to you in the third year, and it will come to you in the fifth year and the fourth year also. So professional electives will have things like, you'll be learning more of architecture, which is trended to vernacularism. For example, you will learn about vernacular architecture, which is the architecture of art, tradition, or culture. And you'll be learning about a little bit of climate initiatives, or you'll be learning about climatology and things like that. You'll be learning about how contemporary process will come into architecture. So contemporary process is an elective. There are different interior design is itself an elective which you can actually take. Then art appreciation. So art appreciation is elective, where you will be taught about how art and how people did art, and how art relates to more of life and the person who did it. So those are the things which you will come across, as a professional elective. Shreya. Yes, sir? Somebody asking a question? E0046. Okay. Shreya, I think I've answered your question. Hope. Yes. Interior design is included. Yeah, interior design comes as one subject in the semester, where you'll be put into a separate. That's an elective where you can actually take that and you can select that and you can learn interior design. Shreya. So Virikshana, what is the better option to choose after diploma in architecture? Job for 1 year or BR? I think, see, as a diploma student, you jump out with your diploma, and I think it's better you run into architecture, because taking a job, I think it's going to be a waste of a year or something. So as soon as you finish the diploma, you can just run into architecture. You can start architecture there. If you're going to be a person who is going to do the diploma and run into architecture, you're going to be more experienced, and it'll be even more easier for you. So that's I think how it works, Virikshana, after a diploma and then architecture. Thank you. Mahalakshmi, what is the scope after BArch? Yes, very good question. The scope after BArch. See, BArch teaches you a lot of, BArch will show you a lot of ways where you can go into. For example, if you are going into, like, you can be an animator artist, okay? You can be a person who is going to product design. You can be a person who's going to look into a lot of, people tend to, after learning architecture, you become so creative. So a lot of students are being placed in a cinema industry, where they are going to design a lot of sets for the people and things like that. So if you can look into the, I think I can just share the screen to answer this, because in the screen I've got a little bit of explanation for that question. What are the things? So if you can see here, so career aspects after architecture, if you can see here, public sector. So you can have jobs in the Central Public Works Department, Housing and Urban Department. Yes, definitely. Municipalities and housing boards will give you a job, and then city development authorities also will give you a job. That is one. And private, yes, industrial ventures, consultancy, and things like that. Now, even more interesting is that this is where you can end up after doing architecture. So you can be an urban planner, you can be an industrial designer, product designer, graphic designer, interior designer, yes. Product designer, definitely furniture or anything or objects. Professor or a teacher, if you really love the job, you can just do it. And being a landscape architect. So that is how, those are the things which you can run into, after doing the BArch. That is the scope. And the scope is really big. It's not this small niche which we're looking into. I hope, that question is being answered. Yes. Mahalakshmi, thank you. Pasupati, yes, Pasupati, now you're studying civil engineering, but I have interest to learn architectural designing. What should I have to do to learn it? Now, since you're a civil engineer, I see, once you're a civil engineer and you finish civil engineering, doing architecture is again going to take a little bit of time in your life, like 5 years. But I would really say you can just, do civil engineering, but you can't really come close to an architect, I would say, because after civil engineering, you will run into the ME, right? ME structural and stuff like that, where there you can become a very good professional. Since you're already into civil, I'm telling. So after civil, you can run into ME structural, where all of the architects, even me, we work with a lot of structural people, okay, the civil engineers, where if you're going to build a house or some design, We sit with them, we talk, we negotiate, and then we plan, and then we do it. So it's not like you're not going to be away from architecture, but civil engineering is really close to architecture. If you do a very good graduation in structural, you are going to be one person who's going to be very needed for the architects itself. So that is how you can take it. Joining into architecture after your civil is going to take 5 years, which I advise you don't do that. But since you're already into civil engineering, you can just continue it. And if you really have a thought like, let me jump out of civil engineering, fine, you can just jump out of civil engineering and you can join 5 years of architecture, Pasupati. I think I've answered your question. Next one, Shreya, is interior design including professional? Yes, I've answered. Thank you. Next one is Koritala Praveen. Okay, I am a student of fourth year B Tech in civil engineering. Can I become an architect? Now, this is a very good question, or a very common question which everybody has. I am a civil engineer. Can I become an architect? I am a civil engineer. Can I become an architect? See, the problem is you finish BR. After BR, there is something called as you need to. There's a organization called the Council of Architecture. Okay, you go to the Council of Architecture, so show all your certificates, and then you submit the certificates, and they will register you as an architect, which is there in Delhi, and they will give you a particular unique registration number which you will have as an architect. Now, for me, I have my particular register number which I will be using wherever I practice. So I don't think so. Civil engineering, after doing civil engineering, you can't become that. After civil engineering, you can become a person like in the structural initiative, the structural industry. But as an architect, you need to, only if you do BR, you finish BR, you will be given a very unique identifying number, which will be the register number from the Council of Architecture, which will be shown that you are an architect. That is going to be an asset for for the rest of your life. So that's how it works, I think, Praveen. Okay. Good question. Thank you. A lot of people have that question. Nagaratnam, will you provide e-certificate for this session? Yes, good question, sir. This session's e-certificate, I will put you through the technical team which we have, which who are arranging things. So they'll be able to answer this particular question for you, or you can just call that number which is there in the the poster. So they'll answer that. Yes, Mahalakshmi. Are there enough opportunities of pass outs, or do we need to do higher studies after BR? Okay, very good question, Mahalakshmi. This question is kind of most of them have the doubt. So let me explain. Now, there are enough opportunities after BR. Yes, I don't say no. Opportunities are varied. You can work in different fields. You can work with cinema, animation. There are a lot of architects even behind the making of Avengers and things like that. So the field is very wide. Now, the question which you are asking is, do I need to do higher studies after this? Now, yes. Now, see, when you want to become a good doctor, for example, after finishing the MBBS, you need to specialize in a particular subject or a field. Only after which you are, you will have that particular uniqueness for yourself. Now, after you do BR, there are a lot of things which are there in the masters. For example, take me. I'm an expert in sustainability, where I finished my BR and then I ran into sustainability in the Masters of Architecture. So like that, we have landscape, and then we have urban planning, and then we have housing and community housings and a lot of things like that. Where you have, if you have an interest to go to the masters, I would really tell, go do the masters and then become even more of a good expert. Okay. So after you do that, you will automatically become this well-versed person by nature, where you will know what to do or what to practice in life. I think that's how it works for that question, Mahalakshmi. Hope I'm answered your question. So I think, I think I've got only so much questions. Anybody else having a question, you can put it through. If you don't have a question, you can just give a thank you so we can end the session. And one more thing, which all of you need to know is, as soon as you get into architecture, you will be put into this. There's this particular thing called NASA. Okay, the National Students Architecture Students Association. NASA is a particular for organization where only students conduct that. Students conduct that particular events every year. If you go to Google and check NASA conventions and things like that, Google will answer you about how architecture NASA conventions happen. So from your college, or if you are a student, you can become a USEC or a UD, where you'll be elected as one person to represent as the college in the NASA. NASA is a organization, or NASA is this particular part of architecture where, as a student, you will be put into more of professional, more of student interaction with a lot of colleges around India itself. Yes, even abroad. So that is one important part of architecture. I think that will be reminding. Okay, next we have one question here. Yes, using AutoCAD, is it taught in the course? Yes, AutoCAD is part of your syllabus. In your third year, there is a particular subject called the Computer Studio, which you saw there in the screen. Computer Studio, they will teach you softwares like AutoCAD, Google SketchUp, Revit architecture, okay, and even more softwares if you really want to get into. So that will be taught by the college itself. So that is there in the curriculum. You don't need to worry about that, Meenakshi. But if you have the interest, you can already jump into learning AutoCAD, Google SketchUp, and things like that. Yes. Now Praveen has another question. What are the softwares that architects uses from designing a building and interior? Yes, Praveen. I just answered that, Praveen, because every software which I told previously, the AutoCAD, Google SketchUp, Revit architecture, even Grasshopper, a lot of higher end, softwares can be used for learning architecture and doing architecture and doing spaces and designs, both for exterior designing buildings as well as for interiors also. So there's nothing to worry about software for interior, software for exterior. Every software which I've told you constitutes both exterior design as well as interior design. I think that should be enough of an answer for Praveen, because that's a good doubt which you had. But thanks, Praveen, for asking that question.